We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Hello again and welcome back, podcast enthusiasts and Star Trek fans, to episode 3 of this second series of the HoM Star Trek podcast. This series, of course, being the one in which we deal with the Borg and advanced AI. And we're back dealing with the Borg this week, as you can probably see on your screen, as we and the Queen hunt down Unimatrix Zero. But we'll get into that a bit later. First of all, as always, I don't do this on my own. I'm always joined by a guest, as you know, and it's a first-time guest again this week, a guest I've been communicating with for a while, hoping to try and lure onto the show. And as always, I'm going to let my guest introduce herself. So here we go.
Hello, everyone. I am Adrienne, and I am excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. Adrienne was a little nervous of being on the show, so be kind, podcast listeners. I know you always are, but yeah, we've been communicating back and forth, and I know you know your stuff when it comes to Star Trek, particularly Next Gen, DS9 and Voyager. Is that right?
Yes, mostly DS9 and Voyager. I got completely addicted for about 5 years there, could get out of it, and it was just a wonderful place to be trapped.
That's fair enough. So, yeah, so that was kind of what lured you to Trek then, was the DS9 Voyager era.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, sort of, because that's when I was kind of like, fancy free, as it were. And I had, back in the days, and you used VHS cassettes, and I'd put them in, and there would be the premiere of Deep Space Nine or Voyager, and I would like write the name on the sticky label. But it was actually my grandmother way back in the day who, when I was just a wee lass, and I'm going to be aging myself because it was like the 70s, and we would be in her living room. She'd be watching all kinds of shows, but then Star Trek would come on, and we would just sit and watch Star Trek. And I was just a little kid, and it was so interesting to me. And she'd talk about the things that were going on and everything. So I think it's Grandma's fault. And then as I grew up, I got pretty excited about Next Gen, but it was sort of, they were okay. I watched all of them and I liked them all, but man, when the later series came out, I was all excited about them, and there was so much darkness in the other two shows. So I mean, I think that's sucked me in.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough. Excellent. For once, I don't feel like the oldest person on the podcast then, because normally
I don't think you are. No way.
Normally, when I describe that, when in the days when I used to save babysitting money to buy a videotape with 2 episodes on, people just seem to be so confused by the very concept. But that's it. Yeah, well, that's enough reminiscing over my shared oldness and the pain in my back. We'll get started.
All right.
Yeah, if that's okay with you, I'm going to jump straight into the first section, because as I said, the podcast is broken down into sections. If you're a regular listener, you will know. I've been over all this with Adrienne. So yeah, the first section is a getting to know you type thing, and it's a section that I call Hailing Frequencies Open.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Okay, well, I'm, like I have said, I'm just excited to be here. I'm a huge podcast person. So just discovering, typing in on my podcast player Star Trek, and that's how I found you.
Awesome.
So
That's
I'm
cool.
a real huge podcast person, and I have other podcasts I listen to about other things, but I'd say this is my main one for Star Trek.
That's awesome. A lot of people haven't sort of listened to it before they come on, but it's good to know that you've been sort of a fan and you've at least listened to a few beforehand, so you kind of know vaguely what to expect. So you'll probably know that this section begins then, if you're a new contributor to the podcast, by asking you the big question: if you had to pick 3 episodes or movies from anywhere in the Star Trek franchise that you think represent the very best, and or that you would use to try to draw a new viewer into Star Trek to sort of put the best foot forward, what would be the 3 stories, shall we say, that you would pick to show someone?
Oh, limiting my brain to 3 is just, I'm going to say diabolically evil on your side, but I'll say If this person is totally new to Star Trek, then I would start them off with The Trouble with Tribbles, because it's funny. It introduces the original series. It introduces all of our favorites, and they're doing things. They're not just stuck on a bridge. And it introduces the Klingons, right? But you don't really see what the Klingons look like because he's
Oh no,
in
there's quite
disguise
a bit.
as a human.
There's
Yeah,
quite a bit of
but you
Klingons
don't.
in there still, though, because
Oh yeah, but I mean the guy. Yeah, that's true. That's true, of course. But the
Koloff and
guy,
the
like, it
trio
kind
on
of
the stage.
introduces like surgical.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, in the future they could take this alien race and make them look human. But
To
yeah.
be fair, though, it's the original series, so the Klingons just look like humans with
Yeah,
beards anyway.
they don't, right, they don't look like Worf. I guess, they're not quite, but hey, the 60s, I mean, yeah. Oh, but anyway,
Yeah,
okay, so the first one would be Trouble with Tribbles, because
definitely. Yeah.
you get to meet the original series people, and then you get to meet the Klingons.
Mhm.
So, the next one
I think
would
it's a very well
be,
structured story as well. Sorry to
oh,
interrupt
it's
you, but I
such
think
a great
yeah.
one, and it's funny and happy and cheerful, so it's not all spacey.
Yes,
There's,
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
these creatures, and Uhura is like, "Aw, look," you know what I mean? And then there's the guy with all the alcohol, so, I mean, it's just a fun
oh,
place to
there's
be,
some great
right?
physical comedy in there that you
There
wouldn't
is,
necessarily think would.
really. Oh, I know the guy, he walks through and he doesn't wanna spill it. I mean,
And then the
this
guy
is
just takes
really
it off.
good. And the guy takes it, yeah. So, I mean, what's not to love about that being the first episode that a brand new person to Star Trek would like?
That's a
Um,
good choice.
the next one would be Borg.
Oh, okay, from
Because
Next
it
Gen.
is, yeah, it is going to introduce Picard and crew. But
Mm.
I love this episode so much, it touches my heart, because of course, there's a little hurt Borg, and everybody does their best to try to save him. The regular peoples that you would think would save him, the doctor, she's going to do her thing, and Geordi's going to do his engineering thing. But you get to see that Picard is kind of wounded. Like, he's not
Mm.
real happy about finding this Borg. And then you're gonna, well, why isn't he? Because he's such a great captain. He represents the Federation. He's like, make it so, and all this stuff. Then you're interested, and maybe that would go back and watch Best of Both Worlds. So
Interesting.
yeah, and then you get to
Yeah.
open with this. What happened with this guy? This is so interesting. So also the guest acting, because Jonathan Delacroix is so great too. And Guinan is there. We always see Guinan as very ethereal. She knows everything and blah blah blah. Guinan is really mad that this Borg is there, right? So that kind of is intriguing for everybody. So I think it's one of those episodes that would make you think more about the big picture of Next Gen. So then maybe this person who would now want to watch Next Generation, because also Guinan's Generations, right? And she's, there's just so much her character. She's really interesting.
Such a sweet scene as well when he's explaining that, like, part of the appeal of the collective is, do you never sort of get lonely without being connected? And he says, well, that's why we have friends. And then when he sort of heartbreakingly just says, oh, like Geordie and Hugh. And you're just like, oh, this little kid's just discovering friendship.
I know. We love him. I mean, in the end, I wanted a little fuzzy Hugh doll, like, for, my house, like, to sit here with me and hang out.
Excellent. And what about your third choice then?
Okay, the third one, I'm bringing it back, baby. I'm taking him back to the Tribble world with Trials and Tribulations, because I love this episode, and I want this person to be interested in all of Star Trek, right? So Trials and Tribulations is like the kind of future of Trouble with Tribbles, and it also introduces Cisco and the whole Deep Space Nine world. So this new person is excited to watch Trials and Tribulations. Maybe they'll be interested in watching Deep Space Nine as well. So that's kind of my little plan.
Or at least the animated
my plan
Tribble
for this person. Right, those are good too.
Well, Star Trek threads everywhere, because if they like the character of Hugh, they might discover that he's in Star Trek Picard and then think, oh, I wonder if I can go straight to that and see what Hugh's up to later.
Absolutely. Oh, I know, boy. I was so excited when I saw that Hugh was coming back and that Seven of Nine was coming back. Oh, that's such good television. I just love writers in general. I really do.
Also, yeah, that's fair enough. So that's 3 good choices there, I think, of episodes, as you said, because they can also branch into other places in the Trek universe. And so the other sort of big question, we know you're kind of more into the sort of next gen, but especially DS9 and Voyager area. But if you had to, gun to your head, pick one series that you would say is your favorite or the best out of all of the series of the franchise, what would it be?
Deep Space Nine, I think, is the most layered, and I like
Right.
lots of intriguing characters like Garrick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I'd say
DS9
Deep
and Next
Space
Gen
Nine,
seem to be the most popular answers, but yeah. So Deep Space Nine, excellent. Yeah, and for all the same reasons that most people say, that it's one intriguing, interwoven story, and the characters are complex and everything. So
They
I can
are.
believe it. I can agree with that. So, yeah, weirdly, we're not reviewing a DS9 episode.
Yeah, and the writers are so great.
What I'll do then, I'll move us on to the next section, which is the section that gives the podcast its name, and that's the section that I call Hit or Miss.
What about my performance?
I'm not a drama critic.
Excuse me. So yeah, if you don't know how this works, which I'm sure you probably do if you've watched the episodes, but basically I will throw out just random things from the Star Trek universe and ask you as my guest if you think it's a hit or a miss, and the reasons as to why you've kind of come to that conclusion, and we can debate back and forth if we disagree. Yeah, and because we're covering a 2-part episode today, I'll try and keep it to only 4 or 5 things just for the sake of time. So is that all okay? Yeah?
Okay, I'm ready.
Awesome. So the first thing on the list then for today is a piece of technology, and it is the CoM badges, which began, I think, in Next Generation. Would you say they're a hit or a miss?
Well, I like them because you can communicate with each other. Then you wear them like a little pretty medallion, and they can get stolen. People think you can hide it from somebody. If you want to go on a walk, you can put your CoM badge somewhere. They're great. I used to actually have one. I bought one a long time ago, and literally just like in the movie, it got smashed in the garage. So
no
CoM
way.
badges always get smashed. And I know those things like this is totally apropos into a real CoM badge.
Oh, you should check it's not emitting a distress signal. That'll be just a Federation ship turns up,
No,
wondering why you're in danger.
I
I agree with you. It would be funny, wouldn't it? No, I completely agree with you. I think the CoM badges are great. I like the old-fashioned communicators with the little flip phone type technology. But yeah, I think the CoM badges are just a really cool, because you find yourself copying it as you said, just tapping your chest and everything. And it looks really cool because it's a chance to get the Starfleet Star Trek logo in on the uniform. The only thing that ever used to confuse me is how it knows who you're kind of wanting to talk to immediately, and doesn't just contact the entire sort of ship, because it seems to recognize if you just say, oh, Picard to Riker, then it's only going to talk to Riker. And I'm like, that's some pretty advanced tech that they never really do explain, do they? But yeah, we'll forgive it, I guess.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Similar to how the computer knows when you're actually trying to address it and when you're just saying the word computer. Whereas if it was anything like our kind of technology today, every time they said the word, the Starfleet computer would just be like, yes, I am listening. I'm active. What would you like?
Oh, that'd be funny. That's next. That's the analogy where the computer just looks at you and says, what would you like today?
As long as it's got Majel Barrett's voice, I'll be all for it. So that's fair enough. So the second thing on my list today is an episode of Next Generation. Hopefully it's an episode that you've seen and you may be familiar with. It is the episode called Peak Performance. Are you aware of that one?
You have to review it. Is it from the first season?
I think it's the second season, but yeah, it's the episode where basically the Enterprise...
Okay.
The Enterprise engages in war games with, I think, the Hathaway is the name of it. It's an old Constellation class ship like the Stargazer. And it's just basically Picard facing Riker in a simulated battle. type situation. That's about the extent of what I can remember about it, I think, at this point.
I do remember that Riker was finally challenged in the early seasons to do something without Picard, but I didn't watch a lot of the episodes if they focused on Riker, especially at the beginning of the Next Gen, because I'm not that huge of a Riker fan from back then, but he got better as everything went on.
Okay.
I didn't get to watch peak
development.
performance enough to remember it. What a fail.
That's fair
now
enough.
I have to go watch it.
That's okay then. I remember it being quite good, but all I can remember is Riker kind of trying to outsmart Picard and this kind of arrogant alien strategist that he had on his ship and everything, and and then ultimately beating him. I think Data beating him at a game of some kind of video game type thing at the end. My memory's equally weird, but
with the fingers.
Again, I'll have to.
Fingers.
Yeah.
And the guy had the things on his fingers. Okay, yes, that
yes,
alien guy kind of bugged me because he was obnoxious.
Yeah, definitely. He was very pompous.
That could be why. Okay, that could be why I never went back to that episode once. I remember at the very end, the thing with the wires coming out of the fingers. I'm like, this guy is so arrogant. Mm-hmm. That's a good word for him.
So maybe you find it a miss because you just didn't like Riker or the alien chap in the episode. Then, but,
I think the mix of those two folks, like Riker being all cocky and Riker coming to the rescue, and then the obnoxious. I was like, next episode, please. I'll just leave this one alone.
That's fair enough. Yeah. I think I remember finding it to be a hit because I just love that everyone kind of gets their comeuppance at the end, and I think it was satisfying when this guy that was like, no one can beat me, and then he faces Data, who's an android, and just absolutely schools him at this game, and he storms off in a huff, which is the part I specifically remember. Yeah.
I love Data, and Data wouldn't have like intentionally been mean or anything. It would have just been totally logical that Data would win,
Absolutely, yeah. Just like facing a machine, but awesome. That's fair enough. Okay, I'll move on to the next thing then, and this is a character who encompasses all of the series you like, and that is the character of Q. And by that, I of course mean the most famous Q, played by John Delancey, since they're all called Q.
Right. I loved episodes with John Delancey because he's so campy, and he steals every scene. If John Delancey is there, he is stealing that scene. And I loved how he played all this stuff, and it was, fine and dandy, and all the drama that he caused in Next Generation. Some of the funny Worf things, especially. Not a Merry Man. I love that. But when he came to Deep Space Nine and Cisco punched him, that was really good because that just basically showed all of us how different Cisco is than Picard.
Cisco just bellowing, "I'm not Picard."
Yeah, there you go. Very true. Yeah, I love Q. I love how he was at the beginning and he was at the end, and he caused a bunch of drama. Then he had a child with another Q, and there's all this craziness, and the child comes back to Voyager, and I loved that whole thing. I
love that really they had John Delancey's actual real life son playing his son in the Voyager episodes.
Yeah, and how fun must that have been? Like when the cameras weren't rolling, father and son, probably entertaining. And I loved how the other younger Q developed a relationship with Icheb. And he's like, itchy. I loved all that stuff. I thought that was real cute.
Oh, that's great. And just out of curiosity, are you excited for the Q in Picard series 2, or you're not so up with the news?
I am. I have not seen. I've only watched. I've only watched a little bit of Picard to where we're just catching up with Jerry Ryan's character, so I don't even really know what happened there. So I still have to finish watching, but yes, I'm excited to see Q.
Yeah, me too. I think you're absolutely right. Well, I'm going to agree with you and say a complete hit because John Delancey is just a fabulous actor, and it's amazing that he runs the gamut from kind of absolute menace that you are terrified of from that first episode that he's in to like slight mischief to like he's actually helping you eventually by the time of Voyager, and it never seems like it's inconsistent characterization. It just always seems right, and it's always played exactly perfectly. So yeah, and as you say, just good casting, isn't it? Really, so, awesome.
It really is good casting and good writing.
Definitely, yeah, 100%. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move to the next thing on the list for today, then, number 4, and it's an episode of Voyager, which again I'm hoping you remember, and it's the episode called Unity from season 3. It's the official first time the Borg were in Voyager. Would you say it's a hit or a miss?
I remember liking Unity, but I didn't keep watching it, which might mean to me that I had seen enough the first time.
Right.
So I would
Could
call it maybe
maybe
the middle, because certain episodes I watch over and over. I basically have the dialogue memorized. But yeah, remind me a little bit about Unity.
Well, it's just kind of, I remember being excited because we'd had the brief tease in the previous episode that the Borg were involved and were coming into Voyager finally. So I do remember there was a lot of excitement as I was kind of watching live at the time. And the episode itself was fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It was just unusual because it was all about a bunch of disconnected ex-Borg, I guess. So there wasn't a whole lot of Borg action in it apart from the Doctor examining a Borg corpse.
Oh, yeah. They found the miscellaneous, but they weren't connected. Yeah,
Yeah, it was an interesting concept that could have. They should have done more with the idea that there was like, well, since we're now individuals, we're all warring and the Klingons are fighting the Cardassians and everything, and we want to try and form a little miniature collective, but then the idea and the morality behind that would be a fascinating thing to explore, but they just don't. It's just kind of, it happens, they manipulate Chakotay, which is a bad sign anyway, and then just find themselves formed into a little collective at the end, and I was kind of like, that's a very weird ending.
Yes. I remember this episode now because I just used my Google machine, and I remember that this was pretty good because this was the episode. I loved these actors, and the Chakotay kind of likes the one woman, or she likes him like for a little while.
Oh, they have a thing
This
going,
was
yeah.
kind of a heavy. Yeah, this was kind of heavy. I just, yeah, I didn't. I'm surprised I didn't remember it when you said it, but yeah, looking at the pictures, see, that's how old I am, makes me go back to all of them. And some of this, I remember the one tall guy was kind of wise, kind of a calm Borg.
Yeah, and he was a Romulan as well,
yeah.
which was really surprising.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that I remember now. Yeah, I kind of liked this one, but these are the pre 7 of 9 episodes, and I think once we got 7 of 9, I was like, okay, Voyager was good, but now they're really doing some good writing. But I actually like that. Yeah, that was a good episode, Unity.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I would say it was a soft hit. I don't think I would call it a miss, and I remember liking it because it was the Borg, and it was a fascinating concept, but I do really wish they'd explored a little bit more rather than just ending on, these people are always going to be pretty amoral, as they've already shown by manipulating Chakotay, and yet it's ending like, well, there you go.
Yeah. But what if we were all connected and we all had our separate missions, and we were just in our little mini collectives, sort of like a family, but scarier.
Yeah, but I also think it would be really, they never really explored the kind of ethical consideration about the fact that these people didn't have a choice. So they were getting attacked by these people that were like at war with them, and it's just like, no, we're going to emit the signal and connect all of our minds to stop them from fighting us. And I was like, they don't have a choice in this. It's a bit sort of,
true.
You know, at that point, you're basically just the Borg again, really, aren't you? So, but,
Ugh.
Anyway, so I would say a slightly soft hit with me, but I wish they'd done more, and I think it was a hit. So there you go. Awesome.
Dark hit.
Excellent. I'm going to do one more then for the hit or miss for this week, and it's something which ties into the idea of the Borg and Voyager and everything, and that is Species 8472. Would you say they're a hit or a miss?
Okay. Species 8472 completely freaked me out when we first met them, and that sort of, it kind of intrigued me, and I was like, this is something completely new. Fluidic space. Right, and all that they mind connected with Keth. So I am not a fan of that, but I think that was bringing him something completely different like that. I think that I think that worked out for me.
Okay, so yeah, you obviously you don't like them as kind of a menace or whatever, but you think it was
Yeah,
an
they're not. I
effective
don't want them as
right?
neighbors.
Yeah,
Right. I just think it was
that's fair.
it was interesting to bring them in, and I love the whole idea of fluidic space and all their treachery and all the bad stuff that they did. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I agree with you. I think I know what you're saying in terms of it's good that they tried something different because it was the first time we'd done a completely CGI alien, because every alien obviously was like humanoid and just looked like us with makeup on, and it was the first time it was something really weird, this spindly sort of three-legged creature that doesn't look like anything we're familiar with, and that was
Yeah,
really cool.
kind of like a xenomorph.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. There is a bit of xenomorph, and I think it's because we are drawn to things that are so different as being scarier, and that worked really well. And I love everything about the way they're presented in Scorpion, their first two-parter. But controversially, I would still have to call the species as a whole a miss, because they did a complete 180, the Voyager writers, on what they were. Because in the first appearance, it's like, as you said, Kess is getting mental images of like, the weak will perish, we will destroy your galaxy, and then a series or so later in the flesh, the series 5 episode, it's like, no, we were just misunderstood, we're trying to infiltrate you, and we like these human forms and things. Now it's like, that's just ridiculous, these aren't the same characters anymore.
Yeah, that was far-fetched. Right, that was fetched.
Yeah.
I could write it off that those were rogue species 8472 folks. Those
That's
were the
true,
rogue
I
ones.
guess, but it's just it's a shame they didn't deliver on the promise of Scorpion, because I still remember how cool it was that these kind of, the Borg at that point was still absolutely unstoppable, and a single cube was a cause for panic, and then that opening teaser of Scorpion when it's like 3 cubes advancing and then they just get blown straight out of the sky, and I'm like, wow, that was what was that? But yeah, it would have been cool to see a bit more of that.
Agreed.
Definitely. But yeah, there is a brief mention of Species 8472 in the episode we're reviewing, actually, bizarrely enough. Very slight, but it is there, that they're going to try to recruit them to help in the whole Borg Civil War.
They're going to reach out to them for help. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it would have been nice to see this. Awesome. That's cool.
Cool.
Yeah. That's so that'll probably conclude the hit or miss. That was a good little section. I think we had some we had an interesting diversity of opinions without losing friendship with each other, shall we say. We were able to disagree, so that's good. I like to have a little bit of a variation, and we like and dislike some things that are the same, so that's cool. So I will jump us to the next section now then, and that's the bulk of the review, and that's the episode analysis. And I will just say begin analysis is the name of the section. Analysis. As I mentioned earlier, viewers and listeners, the episode we were looking at this week is the Borg episode Unimatrix Zero, and that's both parts, or I'm looking at it at least as a single story, because it is really, even though it's in 2 parts. So we're looking at the thing overall. And if you will indulge me, listeners, and yourself as well, Adrienne, I usually try to start with a few just little fast facts now about the episode. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of facts that I was able to find about this one. There's literally only 2. So it shouldn't take very long to get those out of the way. The first one is that this story initially began with the idea of Unimatrix Zero being that 7 of 9 would find that her father, who we've seen previously was assimilated, was the one that she was connecting with in Unimatrix Zero, and dealing with her being able to try to reestablish that family connection. But along the way, it basically became, it would be more interesting, the writers decided, if it was a romantic connection, and thus Magnus Hansen became the character of Axum in these episodes instead. So that's what we got. Whether you prefer it or not, we'll see. And the second fact, which is just a little bit of casting, which I never realized, and it seems so weird in retrospect, but the actor who plays Axum is an actor called Mark Deakins, who had literally just appeared in Star Trek Insurrection as the character of Tournay, which I can't believe. Once you hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, he was in that. And he had previously played a Herodian hunter as well in The Killing Game. So this is his 3rd Trek appearance and his 2nd in Voyager.
Yeah, he was kind of a bad guy in the Herodian one, right? Because he was mad. He didn't want to do the simulations, I think. So he kind of played a bad guy. Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah,
I don't want
absolutely.
accents
He
to
kind
be
of
bad.
goes he kind of goes through the gamut because it starts out with like really bad as the Herogen, and then by the time you get to Insurrection, it's kind of neutral, I guess, but not wanting to be oppressed. And then you get to Axum, and it's pretty much, most of the time he's a good guy and everything, apart from when he forgets and he becomes a Borg again, obviously. But yeah, awesome.
Ugh.
So the way that we do these, then I'm just going to go through as chronologically as I can and just try to hit on some main points and things that I noted. If I skip over anything, Adrienne, that you wanted to kind of go back and mention, or you wanted to chime in on anything, just feel free. I will stop and ask you questions or wait for your responses if need be as well. Yeah, so you all ready to go for the review then?
I am ready. Yay.
Cool. Yeah, so the episode opens then with our view of the Borg Unicomplex. And in case you didn't get the sense of scale, it's big. We see one ship flying through it, and it looks not unlike a lone Volvo climbing Mount Fuji. It's kind of this tiny thing in a massive complex. And we obviously, the camera zooms right through to an individual Borg. And this is my very first nitpick of the episode, and it's an incredibly nerdy nitpick. But we zoom in on the Borg's eye as it's regenerating or sleeping, whatever, and its eye is flickering as it's supposedly dreaming. But later in the episode, it's established that these people that go to Unimatrix Zero are not reaching REM or REM sleep. So why do their eyes start flicking about like that? It seemed like it was a continuity error to me.
I feel like research this whole thing. Like now I have to go in and figure out in the very first scene.
What it does it later as well, because when 7 of 9 gets her cortical node or whatever attached and she goes to Unimatrix Zero, it does the same. It zooms in and shows her eye flickering as if to represent REM sleep. But then, as I said, the doctor specifically says, oh, she wasn't dreaming. She never hit REM sleep. And I was like, then what's the eye flickering all about?
Yeah, because the eye flickering back and forth is supposed to mean that humans are in REM sleep. So yeah, that
Exactly,
is a good catch.
That is such a nitpick, of course. People are listening to me like, oh, come on, shut up.
That's okay. A little bit of pedantry is welcome.
Fair enough. Obviously, we get the introduction or reintroduction now of the Borg Queen, played again by the fabulous Susanna Thompson, an actress who I really like. I think she's great. You a fan of the Queen and of Susanna Thompson's character as the way
yeah, because she plays it very different than Alice Krieg plays the Queen. She's less like obviously devious and sultry and everything, but she's focused on her mission and protecting her drones. Unless they piss her off, then she'll blow them up. But I love how she took over that role. I think that's great, and of course, I love her in the episode of Deep Space Nine when she is Jadzia's ex.
I also think she was. I thought she was great in. If you watch the show, I thought she was great in Arrow's first few seasons, playing the Green Arrow's mum. She was pretty good in that role as well. I
haven't seen Arrows.
Yeah, she's quite a morally complex character, but yeah, in terms of what you were saying, I remember going through an examination of the Borg. I think it was as part of a university assessment or something years ago, and I was looking at the two Borg Queens, and I think I came to the conclusion that Alice Krieg's version of the Borg Queen is kind of the twisted, evil version of the sexy kind of partner, and I would say that Susanna Thompson's is more like the evil version of the mum, of a maternal character.
Yeah, she's more maternal. Definitely has that maternal, and also it's interesting in this episode, she has to communicate with a child, and she's kind of trying to really be maternal, but she's still a robot, as it were. So she's sort of a stiff mom, but she's definitely less obviously conniving than Alice Krieg played her.
Yeah, and I think that's deliberate. I think that kind of scene exists for a reason because, as I say, I think the Alice Krieg Borg will try to seduce you into the collective, whereas the Susanna Thompson Queen will try to nurture your way into it and be like, no, we're all friends. We're taking care of you.
Never lonely. Come on over. Go, no.
And the other Borg Queen's just kind of like, I'm going to give you skin and blow on it. Is that good? Do you like it?
Poor Data. Data's just trying to be Pinocchio. He's just living his life. And this crazy lady comes along and blows on his skin. And now he's never going to be the same.
Speaking of First Contact, though, I found it interesting. I don't think it was entirely successful, but it was interesting that they tried to copy the idea of the Borg Queen kind of constructing from parts, which was kind of a First Contact callback in the start of this episode. Like I say, I think because it was a TV budget, it didn't quite work as well as the First Contact one, but it was still kind of like, I applaud them for trying, you know?
Yeah, that was
What did you?
interesting. I mean, she had to do her best and get all the different brain parts and everything together. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's fair enough. And then we get into the first reference of this Borg that we tracked earlier that was kind of sleep regenerating, has what's described as a disease, and it's some kind of mutation. And the next bit, again, this is a very nerdy nitpick, but to kind of, I guess, torture the information out of him, she disconnects him from the collective so that he doesn't have the voices and feels lonely. This bugs me no end because they expressly state in Best of Both Worlds that the Borg can't just disconnect random drones because it would be like removing an arm or a leg, and yet the Queen just nods and that's it. It's fine. I was like, really? That seems
I
a bit.
wonder if she can, though. Maybe she has got some advanced technology. Maybe they assimilated somebody between that time, and they got that technology. So now she knows how to do it. Plus, she's really mad. So maybe she did that to him.
Well, this nitpick led me down a bit of a rabbit hole, so forgive me, audience, but I did actually look it up, and there is a page on Memory Alpha where it explains that despite what is initially believed, there are ways that a drone's link to the collective can be severed. I think there's 7 or 8 of them, and they are, if you'll indulge me, intentional termination by the Borg Queen, as you've said, she can do it. Disruptive natural phenomenon like an electrical storm, as seen in Unity. Physical or traumatic damage, like we see in iBorg. Separation by time, like the 24th century Borg can't contact the 21st century Borg in First Contact. A security force field or dampening field, as seen in Best of Both Worlds, iBorg and Scorpion. In denobulan physiology, high doses of Omicron particles. We will discuss that next week. Or finally, a submatrix collapse, as is mentioned in Picard. So yes, Dr. Crusher's analogy that it would be like removing a hand or a foot, not, as it turns out, all that accurate. There are lots of ways to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, apparently Dr. Crusher wasn't up on the current medical journals of the day.
Well, it's just not good enough. I demand her to know her Borg. I suppose it was their first encounter.
Get back to school. Yeah, true.
Yeah. But yeah, to go back to something you were saying as well, the Queen, because it's showing you her trying to get to grips with whatever this disease is, even though we don't know expressly what it is, we can see it's got her worried, and it's making her act very brutal as she's like seen, tearing this drone away, disconnected, and then we see later she's like ripping heads off and digging in the brains and stuff. And yeah, so it's clearly something that's got her concerned, which I think as an audience member is an interesting place to end the teaser, because you're like, wow, what could the Borg really be worried about? So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those scenes, it was sort of like, ooh, how graphic can we give her TV with this Borg stuff? Okay, Queen, she's really mad. She herself is disembodied in general, so she doesn't mind ripping heads off and stuff like that. And she's going to use basically any means necessary to discover what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I do like that they acknowledge that, actually, because it would have annoyed me if they hadn't, that she actually says to the kind of disembodied heads that she's killed, it's a shame you're not alive to experience disembodiment. It's the epitome of perfection. And I'm kind of like, that's just salt in the wound. Just showing off.
It is like, look and see what I got. Oh, well, too bad you missed your opportunity. Well, maybe next time. Yeah. And she does it with, she isn't overly flamboyant, Susanna Thompson, but she does lift her hand, doesn't she? She lifts her hand just a little bit in that scene. Oh, yeah, that's golden.
Yeah, she's kind of, as you say, she's logical and robot-like, but she's not emotionless like a Vulcan, and there's moments of definite kind of arrogance and anger, I think, that come through, including a bit I'll talk about a bit later on, probably, when we get to it. But yeah. All right. So then, straight after the credits, anyway, we are introduced to Unimatrix Zero. And again, I thought that was fascinating because we've already just dealt with the intrigue about what are the Borg worried about. And then we get 7 of 9 in this lush forest and a random man calling her by her human name, Annika. And then she wakes up and it's very like, wow, that's jarring. What's going on here? So yeah,
that's really good. Did you notice Did you notice the music?
I did throughout the
music,
episode.
it
Yeah, I thought it did a really good
changes.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right with this point that you're talking about when it's the scary Borg music and there's disembodied heads and then there's this beautiful kind of forest thing. Right at that point, the music got to my brain and I really think that it made a huge difference. It made me like the episode or made me like this stuff a little bit better because at first I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you in terms of the music because it's also really good the way that it underscores the two big fights at the end of both episodes with the tactical Borg cube. Because it's difficult to do kind of like action music whilst you're scoring like a space battle and it's just lasers going everywhere and stuff. But I think they did a really good job. So yeah.
Agreed.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, this is a nitpick that half the audience are probably going to groan at me over. But the Doctor says to 7 of 9, it's another big milestone because it's her first dream. She's actually dreamed twice before, Doctor. I can't remember the second occasion, but one of them was definitely the episode "Waking Moments" that she very expressly dreamed. So,
yeah, and what about the Raven?
That's the one. That was the other one. Yes.
Yeah, the Raven. Yeah, her parents and the terror of seeing her parents, and first seeing the Borg on her ship, and I think that was it, and that's when we meet little Annika.
Yes. Oh, yes. We will. We'll definitely get into that later in the season. I have a guest coming on to review that particular episode as well.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, Linda Butler, I think, reviewing that one with me. So yeah, I like it. Well, I shouldn't tip my hand, but I will just say I've seen that episode a lot. Let's just go there. So yeah, awesome. I did find the Doctor, the holographic Doctor, I thought was acting a little bit weird here towards 7 of 9, but I don't know why. I don't know if it was just me or if it was like a weird kind of jealousy, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. It could be one of those things where they're basically family now. I mean, the Voyager, they're out there, and 7 of 9's basically become part of the family, and the Doctor is feeling some things towards her. He wants to help her, but he's just, I think, I wouldn't say in love with her. I'd say he's just intrigued in a rather enamored way for a hologram. And now he realizes that there's maybe something he didn't know about her. So this is sort of one of those surprise moments, and he's maybe slightly disappointed because she's his like a kid.
They have a very Henry Higgins, Eliza Doolittle kind of relationship. So I think you're right. It's kind of like, well,
yes.
Why did I not know about this immediately? Kind of thing. Yeah.
Agreed.
Fair enough. I have to go on to the next scene because I absolutely love it, and it's the scene when they are playfully having a go at Tom Paris for being a few seconds late, and then he discovers a little box on his chair with a pip in it, and we find out that he's being re-promoted.
He had previously been. I love him.
Oh yeah, he's a good. Well, that's fair enough. But yeah, he'd been demoted early for going against orders in the episode 30 Days. I won't get into it, but go watch the episode if you're interested in seeing why. The reason that I love this scene is because Harry Kim says what literally the entire audience to this day still think, which is just the whole sarcastic, I didn't see any little box on my chair. Like, hang on, this jerk got straight to lieutenant after he was in prison, got demoted, got promoted back, and I'm still an ensign over here.
Exactly, and he's never even been in trouble.
Exactly.
Can a guy get a break here?
Not only has he not been in trouble, he's like he almost single-handedly enhanced their sensors and built an astrometrics lab and everything. Now, good job, Harry. You'll still be an ensign forever.
Right, except that he's been in for a while. He's basically, just because of his time and basically everything he's done so far should have earned him a little promotion. I don't think he should still have been an ensign, but they talk a lot on their little podcast.
I know, yeah, but it's true. It's so very true. But
it is.
I never understood how the ranks worked on Voyager anyway, because it's always struck me as weird that the Maquis have a kind of provisional rank that Janeway's given them, so it's not the Pips, it's some other thing. And yet Tom Paris seems to have just been made a full lieutenant out of nowhere. He has the actual Starfleet pips, and I'm like, how does this work? Because he was just as like criminal as the Maquis. The next scene I wanted to mention, just because I don't think it has any purpose in the episode, and it struck me as it might have been that the episode was running short and they had to add something. Because it's just that Voyager comes across, they receive a distress call, first of all, and they come across like an asteroid colony, only to discover that they're too late. The entire colony's been wiped out by the Borg. So Janeway just logs it as, oh, well, we don't know who these people were, but the Borg destroyed them and we're carrying on. And I was like, what was that scene for? Other than to perhaps establish the Borg are threatening, but we kind of know that by now.
Yeah, probably that the Borg are near or have been there. And we're not just gonna, they're always looming. But that might be why they had to put it in. Maybe they needed a little spot. Could be.
I feel like it was padding for time, because they do go to the trouble later of saying that they're specifically trying to find a cube. So it's not like they had to be in the area. It's like, no, we're looking for the nearest one to commit this crazy plan. So, but never mind. The rest of it's just basically establishing the rules, I guess, of Unimatrix Zero, that you can be killed in there and you'll just come back the next time you regenerate, which is handy to know. Because until then I thought it was the same rules as the movie The Matrix, but apparently not. So there we go. They exist as individuals, and yeah, definitely it was a good choice. So, yeah, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I hope so. Whoever it is that did, and I think it's a matte painting for Unimatrix Zero, when they go to like the edge and there's like a gorgeous beach and what looks like a little forest and everything there. Really gorgeous looking. I thought it was a very good job.
Yes, aesthetically pleasing. You do want to go there. That that maybe that could be. They just don't want to give up Unimatrix Zero, because look, they get a little bit of paradise. They had to make it paradise-ish.
Yeah, and I think, as you were saying earlier, because that's the thing, it has to look like that, and I think that's, as I said, feeding into what you were saying. The music even is kind of, wistful and dreamy and romantic, and kind of like, oh, this is a great place, So it's really hammering it home. But I think you need that a little bit to be kind of like, this is, for them, this is a huge deal. They've got their individuality back, and it's not just a matter of, well, it's only a forest. What do you want to go and live there for?
Yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, obviously this the first sparks of the plot happen here, because they mention that they've designed some kind of virus to mask which of the drones have this mutation and can go into Unimatrix Zero, but they need someone to release it into the collective because, and again, this is a weirdly important plot point, they don't remember Unimatrix Zero when they wake up as Borg drones again, which is, again, interesting from a plot standpoint, because that brings everybody else into the action. And again, it's kind of fascinating. Though I will say that it was really gross seeing the assimilated Axum when we've gotten to know him.
I know, poor Axum. I mean, he's got vivacious, and he's got all this energy, and then all of a sudden you look and it's ching 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 ching. He's just another Borg. Oh
Yeah.
man, I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, Axum, no.
Although I do make a note. I do note that every time it's a Borg that you're supposed to kind of connect with, it's the only time they don't have anything covering their eyes, and they do the same thing with Axum. Because every other Borg has like an eyepiece or something, or an eye gouged out. But Axum and 7 of 9's dad, when you see him, and even the Voyager crew members later, they don't have anything covering their eyes, because you're supposed to be like, no, you will see who this person was and feel sympathy. And I was like, yeah, I'm on to you. I know what you're doing.
Yeah, I see technique. Yeah, I never thought of that, but that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so obviously we get through the Queen being a bit more brutal and talking to some more disembodied heads. A little fact that I'd found out, which I had no idea about, but is now something I can't unsee, is that one of the disembodied heads is Brent Spiner, because they had it in storage from use during Next Gen, during the episode Time's Arrow. So they just like heavily Borgified the Brent Spiner mold they already had.
Oh man, see, now I have to go and watch these episodes again. I've already watched them twice to do this recording. Now I have to go find that exact scene.
It's really well disguised, but when you find the right screenshot and you really look, it's like, oh yeah, that is a Brent Spiner head, isn't it?
Oh, that's funny. Okay, I have a mission after this.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So obviously we get, as I said, that they delve quite a lot into the romance subplot, I guess, or main plot, I guess, even by talking about how we're seeing the connections these people all have in Unimatrix Zero. There are lovers, there are families, and Axum explains that Annika, as she's known, knew everyone there for about 18 years. This is where we get introduced to a character that I like, the character of Korok, the Klingon in Unimatrix Zero.
Oh, I love him. Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something really jarring about this like idyllic kind of environment where everybody's like floaty and hippie-esque, and he's just coming in like, I do not trust her.
Yeah, I like him because of his whole character arc in this episode and what happens at the end. But I think his character was really well done. I liked him. Yeah, and I liked how Laura, or I don't remember the name of the woman, but she says,
That's right, Laura, yeah.
"Shouldn't you be filing your teeth?" I was like, I wonder if they are if they have some sort of sparring or something that they do, because she basically just put him in his place and he growled and walked away.
As I say, we get a little bit more about Annika talking to Axum and saying she will ask Voyager for help, and she's trying to convince Janeway and the Voyager crew. And we get a nice bit of kind of Starfleet morality when they say, if we get a call for help, a distress signal, we help. It's what we do. It shouldn't be any different because they're Borg. They've asked for help. And so then Janeway mentions that she wants to see this Unimatrix Zero. And we get, my eyes did roll a little bit at this, the most convenient Vulcan ex machina ever, where it's just whatever ability they need these Vulcans to have, they will miraculously spring out of nowhere. And it's like, I can join your minds together if you want. It's like a mind meld. It's like, where did this come from? Yeah. Come on.
Yep, exactly. Have Vulcan will travel. Like the Vulcans can do anything. They make it all better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's understandable that they need a reason to get her in there, but I was kind of like, you're just going to make up random Vulcan powers? Come on. Again, I see through your writing here. Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, I also I like that Janeway's quite proactive in these episodes. So it's her that kind of suggests for the first time, why just try to hide yourself? Why not try to develop a virus that lets you retain your individuality when you're separated from Unimatrix Zero? And we will try to do this. We'll find a way. And again, the line which sums up this entire story, which is you're talking about a civil war. No, I prefer to call it a resistance movement, which is like, okay, all right, I see what you're doing here. But yeah, and then we see quite a horrific moment, as I say, because of this sanctuary nature of Unimatrix Zero. So when the Borg drones kind of start stomping through, re-assimilating people, I guess, or whatever, it's quite scary. We get the kind of Borg vision shots and everything. It's a bit horror movie-esque. But then it's a very sort of punch the air cheer moment when Janeway picks up the bat'leth and just takes out the drone by herself.
Yeah. And then, of course, that's when the Borg Queen, she sees that footage and she's like, Janeway. Yeah.
Always interfering, Janeway. I love it.
Yeah. All with these meddling kids. Yeah. And that, it kind of made me think, Ahab, seeing Moby Dick. It kind of goes both ways with these two, and they're both each other's nemesis. So
I love that.
It's about to get good.
Absolutely. And as much as I don't love the idea of the Borg Queen, because I think the Borg are scarier without like an individual voice, I think the Borg Queen, and I've mentioned this before, is used better on Voyager because she's the only time there's really a villain who deservedly goes toe-to-toe with Janeway, and they spar really well together, those two characters, particularly as like I said, the representative of the good mother and the bad mother for Control of 7 of 9, which is why I think Dark Frontier works really well.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's just me being film critic mode.
Well, I think that Janeway and the Borg Queen just really play well off each other, like Kirk and Khan or something. I really like watching it. I'm intrigued because they have, it's not just them and their ship, but then it becomes like, I'm going to save my family. No, I'm going to save my family. Oh yeah, well, I'm going to blow up all this side of my family because you interfered in my family. And Janeway's like, well, now I'm going to make them part of my family. So I like that with these two women warriors. I just think it's great.
Definitely, absolutely agree with you on that one. Yeah, 100%. Awesome. I remember when I first saw this episode, I was so super excited to finally see a new kind of Borg cube, even though all they've done is just stick some extra armor on it. It's so cool.
Yeah, it was sort of like more of a tank versus a regular truck or something. It's more of, it's got its armor on, an ablative armor almost.
Yeah, exactly. Which they do a lot, but it's so cool, isn't it? Really. They mentioned that it gives you the stakes as well, because it's like, not only are we trying to infiltrate any old Borg cube, we're infiltrating the most heavily armed type that, so rare, we've never seen it before, and it's got extra armor and everything. So good luck with that. Like that they have time to have Janeway and Seven have a scene where Janeway discusses Seven being a bit more human in Unimatrix Zero and what that might mean, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Because then that leads you into...
Their scenes together are good.
Oh, they're always good, yeah. But that leads directly into like Seven going to recruit the troops, I guess, and gather them around. And as they're hiding from drones or something, you get the slightly hawky scene of like she notices Axum's arm around her and inquires about the nature of their relationship and was it a romantic relationship, and then gets terrified when she kind of learns it is and gets nervous and says that no, my name is 7 of 9. And I was like, that should be really cheesy, but for some reason these two actors just play it really well and have good chemistry, so I'm kind of fine with it.
Yeah, they're kind of back and forth when she discovers that they were basically lovers. She does it pretty well, but it helps that they have chemistry together, the two actors.
Definitely, yeah. We get a brief explanation of the plan, or the plan that we're supposed to think is the plan, to attack the tactical cube and inject the central plexus and just beam away. Janeway is going to do it by herself, but of course we get that Star Trek moment of like, no, Starfleet directive, whatever, says you need a security officer. Aha, this other Starfleet directive says you need an engineer, even though I've just made it up. And like, yeah, I like the banter just as much as anyone. I get it. So yeah, I understand what they were going for on that one. As I said, I mentioned that just she's still going to go on her own, but it's Chakotay that convinces her by being a little bit flirty. I noticed in this scene in the corridor when he's like, no, take people with you. You've got to look after yourself and whatnot. And it's the only way I'll agree to do it. I was like, all right, you two, get a room.
Right.
The next scene is a very mixed bag for me, because it's when they detect they're being hailed. And it's really cool when you don't see who's on the screen at first, but the entire bridge just glows green. And it's like, as soon as that happens who it is. But we just get Harry in the command chair like, Captain, it's for you. So then she goes up and she has that fantastic kind of face-to-face scene via the view screen with the Borg Queen, where it's the Queen, again, shows that she's worried, which is surprising and kind of sad for the Borg as a threat. But it's, again, a great kind of, she's trying to bribe Voyager and we could get you home quicker and whatever else. But then the scene ends with a really weird scene, where the Queen just realizes that she's getting nowhere and just goes, oh, we'll be seeing you soon, Harry. And he responds with, what's that supposed to mean? To this day, I have no idea what that's about. Any ideas?
Yeah. Well, to me, that is like, hey, nice family you got there. Hope nothing happens to it. Sort of like a mafia kind of a thing. Like, because the first person when on the bridge, the only one is Harry when she comes on to the screen, and then Janeway just strolls in. She doesn't say, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. She just strolls in. Oh, it's been a long time. No, she doesn't play the game. And so the Borg Queen is like, okay, hey, Harry, see you later. Because,
so she's basically threatening the youngest and weakest.
Oh, yes. She can tell that Janeway loves Harry. Harry's like a son.
Okay.
And Borg Queen's going to say, oh, really? You're not scared of me? Okay, see you later, Harry. And Harry's like,
I get it. So it's a very sort of sly threat.
That's what I
understand. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I can dig that then. So anyway, we're almost at the end of part 1 now, because we get a little bit of there's a very brief scene between Tom and B'Elanna, which I like, but I think it is too brief. I would have preferred a bit more, because she's going on this insane, dangerous mission, and they are, I believe, at the very least, they're engaged at this stage. They're definitely dating, and we get one kind of brief scene in the Delta Flyer, and that's it. But it's nice that it's there, I guess.
He knows he's not going to stop anything from happening. He just has to say it.
Yeah, definitely. They are great together. Again, it's great chemistry and everything. But what's less impressive for me is that when Seven there's a little bit of padding when she's gathering Unimatrix Zero yet again in another gather the troops scene, and then kind of explains to Axum that, I'm nervous about all this. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just, we were just colleagues. And then he takes a major huff, and I'm like, that's not entirely fair, dude. That's very dodgy behavior in this day and age to be like, oh, well, I'll remember that then. Like, dude, let her take it at her own pace. Just chill.
Yeah. It's sort of like to me, that's like a trope reversal, like it's the man who is sort of sad, that it's just time to be friends. And,
So yeah, very quickly then, just to finish up, the tactical cube flies by and is attacked by Voyager and the Delta Flyer in what is definitely a blatant homage to the opening of First Contact with the Borg cube being attacked by Starfleet. But I'd love the special effects on the actual attack. I'm a sucker for space battles anyway, and it was just really cool. And again, I remember when I first watched the episode, just utter shock that the Delta Flyer was destroyed, just unceremoniously, 3 torpedoes and it's debris in the middle of space. It's like, wow, okay, things are serious. And then obviously Janeway, Tuvok, and Torres board the Borg ship, and it looks like they're trying to fight their way through, but ultimately they get assimilated. And that could be a shocking cliffhanger, except I do feel, and I don't think I'm alone on this, that they kind of undercut their own cliffhanger, because we didn't really need the scene of Chakotay saying, when he hears that they've been assimilated and their life signs are erratic, you actually cut to Chakotay saying, okay, so far so good, get us out of here. And I was like, that just completely destroys the tension. Why would you do that to yourself? Did you think that was a weird choice as well?
They were in jeopardy. Left that. Yeah.
This is my biggest kind of problem and bugbear with this story overall, is the idea that the Voyager crew members voluntarily got themselves assimilated. And I understand that they have the whatever neural suppressant which doesn't combine them to the collective, but Star Trek has gone out of its way to point out what a physically traumatic and harrowing thing it is to get, metallic parts injected into you and your limbs hacked off and look like these horrible cyborg type things. And they do look really ugly. So the idea that they're volunteering for this struck me as really odd, particularly if you start looking, without getting too deep into it, looking at the idea of Borg assimilation as a metaphor of any kind of violent assault or whatever against your will. Even on the metaphorical level, it's like, are we trying to say that you can survive it as long as you just don't feel or whatever? It's a very murky area for me, so I just didn't ever really love it.
Never thought of it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, assimilation, that's traumatic. I mean, look at everything Picard went through, but maybe volunteering, is the way they were able to get away with it. And, I think it's probably known that Tuvok would probably come out of it differently than Janeway and Torres. But it's true. I never really thought about that they volunteered. Basically, okay, you're going to be assaulted, so just deal with it.
Yeah, and I just don't, like I said, because they've went, and maybe it's not fair to judge it against other things in the franchise, but going to First Contact, when you see the effect that it has, and like I said, there's bloodied sort of stumps with metal attached and someone's eyes gouged out, and the horrible kind of zombie-like look of the faces and stuff, and it's like, you guys are volunteering for this? I'm sorry, but no, I don't care whether I'm linked to the collective or not. I do not want that happening to me,
Nope, me either. I'm with you.
Yeah. But anyway, we go. So going back into the episodes themselves then, because that's obviously, as I said, they've kind of undercut as well as that what the actual point is, that it was their plan to get quote unquote assimilated, because with the virus they've now got, they can survive not being connected to the collective. So, okay. I was curious for just your thoughts then on what you thought about this plan. Did you think first of all, that Janeway was right to kind of get involved and help the Borg? And if so, do you really think the voluntary assimilation was the best plan and the best course of action?
Well, that's an interesting point. I love the story. Janeway's going to do it no matter what because she's she hates the Borg so much and she's going to save her family and she loves Annika and she's just like a do-gooder anyway. But this is where my husband David was like, yeah, they're going to be really mad at her. Starfleet is not going to like this, and if she did have to get involved, then she should have altered the nanovirus to just kill them, So this is one of those things where I get all excited about something, and then reality comes back. Oh yeah, the Federation. We're not supposed to do that.
Oh, I certainly don't begrudge anybody who kind of likes this plan or thinks that this plan is kind of fine, and it certainly is in character for, at the very least, Janeway, to be kind of like, you know what, just to stick it to these ultimate enemy, I'll put up with it, you know what I mean? But to a degree at least. But yeah, it's very weird. It just strikes me that I was never that bothered by because she even mentions it probably violates Starfleet protocols, but again, it's the Borg, and Starfleet, as we see in Next Gen, are kind of like, no, if you get a chance to hurt the Borg, just do it, because they could come for us at any time. So I'm kind of fine with I'm fine with that side of things, but I just think there must have been an easier way, because I get it seems later on that they have to be assimilated so that they can have the little Borg shields and get through to the central plexus and inject the virus that way. But I'm like, there's got to have been a better way. Surely they could have sent like a droid or a probe or something that could have done the same thing, But
they need one of those Star Wars probes to get in there and try not to get shot.
Yeah, or I'm not sure if you've seen them, but the cool little things they have now in Discovery, the little what look like flying R2-D2 robots. Send one of them in. I'm certainly guilty of not minding things that make no logical sense just because I enjoy the episode and I can kind of hand wave it or head cannon it away. So I don't begrudge that, like I said. But for me, I just can't quite get away with it because, I don't know, I just find it a bit too offensive to me, I guess, without wanting to be too dramatic. But yeah. I do think it's an odd choice as well to show that even though they're, retaining their individuality, the episode opens with like Tuvok switching to Borg vision as if he's getting fully taken over, which again doesn't make a lot of sense. And B'Elanna's had a vocal processor installed, and Janeway's getting something drilled into her head. And I'm like, all the visuals here are like, this is horrible and horrifying and bad. So why are you still just like, but it's fine? You get the, I always like when you get at least a ticking clock on things to give a bit of stakes. So finding out that they've got 2 hours before the Borg go to transwarp and they won't be able to track them down and get the away team back, I think was an interesting bit of tension to give you. I wish they'd have done a bit more with it, but that's fair enough. 7 of 9 going back to Unimatrix Zero and just, again, expressing her discomfort and on how kind of she wants to lead this charge against the Borg in this civil war, but she's very nervous of Axum. But it does lead to the great scene, and again, just how legendary this character is, that Korok, of all people, is like, if you would like some advice from a warrior in the bed chamber as well as the battlefield. I was like, this guy is so cool. I just want to hang out with this dude.
I know. I totally want to hang out with Korok. Like, that's what, if I'm going to be stuck in Unimatrix, I'm hanging out with that guy, because he just says whatever he wants. And can you imagine being the writer who got to write that? And then did you notice 7 of 9's reaction? She just lifts an eyebrow. Like, are you really talking to me about that right now? Just one eyebrow said so much. Like, you've known me for 18 years, but I'm just meeting you. So can we not talk about being a warrior in the bedroom right now? So awkward. One eyebrow.
How many Klingons would even say that, though? I just love it. It's like, a warrior in the bed chamber, too.
Yes.
He's got no filter. And I'm here for
no, he doesn't. And that he makes it really good. Yeah. Love that guy.
Yeah. I'd also love that he's not like a hot-headed sort of a pig-headed, bad-tempered character, because even when later on it's like he disagrees and they talk him around, he changes his mind in a way that a lot of the older sort of angry Klingons wouldn't, and would be like, no, I'm definitely right. So I'm like, see, this guy's cool. He's just kind of...
Yeah, I like him. He's cool. Yeah, he is chill, but also he had been in the collective for so long that he knows what everybody I mean, if the Borg Collective really is what they say and everybody can hear each other's thoughts, he really knows these people, so he'll listen to them.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
if he had a bunch of other Klingons around him all the time, Lursan Bator on one side and the Duras house on the other, like talking him out of it, then he would be more Klingon. But right now he's sort of like, okay, we have a mission. That's why I really like him.
In the same way that Worf, I think you're right, kind of tempers his behavior because he's in Starfleet, and so yeah, you're right. He's not just like, I will be angry and always right and whatever. So.
Right, and where's the gawk and all this stuff? He's got to be like they kind of have a mission right now. They're trying to survive, and he knows he's a leader. We find out later he's definitely a leader.
Oh yes, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's awesome. So anyway, the next thing that we see is when we're back on the cube that they can actually get through the shielding in the central plexus, and Tuvok almost kills Captain Janeway, which struck me as a really weird thing because he's like, we must disable this drone, and he almost pulls the wire out or whatever that would be seen to kill or deactivate various drones in the past. Which is a weird choice as well with this whole, like, look what you've done to yourselves. And then again, they reinforce when she turns around and they go, oh, Captain. And she just goes, what's left of her? And I was like, again, you volunteered for this, love. You know what I mean? You can't now start complaining.
Yeah, you made this Borg ship. Now sleep in it. Like they made the choices to go. Yeah, they got to deal with it.
And again, it's something that, without wanting to sound, I hate being negative, but it really bugs me that Tuvok starts hearing the collective and she just says very casually, oh, the neural suppressant must be wearing off. Just try to maintain your composure. And I was like, there was a chance of this? And you still went ahead with the mission?
Yeah, you knew this was an option? Dude, I didn't see this on the risk assessment chart. Where was it that this neurosuppressant wasn't going to work? You failed to mention that.
Exactly, yeah. Because why would you volunteer again? But and again, the Queen looks really incompetent because it's only now, after they've clearly been assimilated for a while, that she's like, "Why can I not hear them? I can hear Tuvok occasionally, but why can't I hear the rest of them?"
Yeah. Janeway really makes her freak out. Janeway she's not, I think Janeway, she knows that's her nemesis, and she's not.
Oh, yeah.
She's not herself. She's like, what the heck, this Janeway? What is she doing? Gotta get rid of her.
Yeah. And that's later on when she literally loses her temper, and even though she's only talking to a hologram, she like reaches to throttle Janeway's throat and realizes this is so dumb because she's not really there. It's just sheer anger.
Oh, she made my temper again. Dang it.
Exactly, yeah. Janeway just looking smug there, like, I don't negotiate with Borg. Yeah.
Nope.
Awesome. Then obviously we get more of the drones attacking Unimatrix Zero, which I only made a note of because this has never happened before, but I actually spotted a stuntman called Tom Morga, who's a regular stuntman for Voyager, who I noticed was one of the Borg drones, because I've been reading somebody like behind the scenes of Voyager books and stuff recently, that I was like, oh, it's that guy.
Oh, how cool. He would probably love to know that you recognized him. That's cool.
Yeah. I did think that the traps that they were setting for the drones were a little bit roadrunnery because it was very primitive, but it's really cool that they came up with, of all things, they had like a meet cute when Seven gets caught in Axum's net and they're just kind of talking through that. And I was like, okay, this should be terrible, but it kind of works just because of the chemistry here with the two of them,
It did kind of work, but that's funny. Like, a big Acme box like dropped in Unimatrix Zero, and like these nets and stuff came out. How are there no anvils? You know what I mean? But yeah, because she gets trapped in this thing, and she's like, I think this is where she says, Korok was concerned.
Yes.
Is that where she says that?
He sarcastically goes, well, maybe we should check then in case Korok's even more concerned or something back at her.
Yeah, that's where they kind of, and she admits that she's looking for him and all this stuff. So yeah, it's over. Cat's out of the bag. She's starting to have her feelings back for Axum.
Yes. But as much as I kind of have an issue with this idea of the assimilation, they do play the horror of it quite well in moments. And I think the bits of like Tuvok hearing the Queen and chanting his own details of his life, where he was born and his kids and stuff, is a really cool. It doesn't make any sense that it should have to happen, but at least it's dealing with it in a scary kind of way. But again, it's very convenient that the Voyager away team don't have any of the traditional hacked off limbs or gouged out eyes or anything that you would normally be the first thing that would be done to you as you're assimilated, because of course they have to be able to be repaired and be fine next week. So
Yeah, that
I
would
kind of
mess
got annoyed
everything
about
up.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would mess up the whole thing.
Mm.
No, you can't cut off Tuvok's leg. But I like
Yeah.
that Tim Russ really stepped into this role. I mean, a lot of my favorite episodes are all about Tuvok because I think Tim Russ's acting is just so superb, and I think he really
Mm.
played this well. Thinking about it and everything, and I liked it.
There's a nice little scene here. There's not a whole lot happens, but the scene between Tom and Chakotay, because Tom's now first officer, and he's kind of he's angry at Chakotay for like Chakotay just wants to wait, and Tom wants to do something because he's obviously worried about his future wife. And I just love the fact that he's like Chakotay's like, oh, a first officer could get in trouble for talking to a captain like that, and Tom just responds, "Oh, I learned from the best." I was like, oh,
Yeah, that's true. Chakotay, when he first came on, was really like that. Wasn't it an interesting parallel? Because Janeway has to say to Chakotay at the beginning, "I need your support,"
Mhm.
and then Chakotay has to tell Tom Paris the same thing. "Hey, I need your support."
Yes, I
So
made
it's
that
kind of
note
an
of the
interesting
exact same thing.
parallel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
very
kind of cool. I
deliberately
like
like,
that little scene. Yep. Yeah.
definitely, yeah. That's a scene I think we did need, and I do like that as well. So that's awesome.
It's good to see
But
these two. Yeah.
yeah, but back on the cube, things are A, going kind of well because at least they've downloaded the virus, but B, terribly because Tuvok has now been fully assimilated, which again, we're in trouble here. That should be a very big red flag, and there's not quite as much worry about that as I think as it deserves. Voyager is forced to move closer because they realize that Tuvok's life signs are now gone, kind of, more or less. The Janeway gets kind of kidnapped, I guess, and taken to see the Queen. But the Voyager, despite getting closer, is now attacked by the Borg and has to withdraw because, having assimilated Tuvok, the Borg now have Voyager's tactical codes, to which I've just written in bold capital letters. They didn't change the access codes. How effing dumb are these people? They knew the security chief was on this mission and there was a risk of this, and they were like, nah, we're fine.
Yeah, exactly. How did they not have that on their pre-boarding a ship checklist? Change the codes, They left that off.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, security chief's over on the Borg ship. He's kind of a Borg now, but should we change the codes? Nah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
We're good.
But yeah, it is good though watching the Queen get more and more irate and kind of seeing as she's losing the voices when the virus works, and she says it's like thousands and thousands, which we don't really get a chance to. We can't conceptualize that, I think, in our minds, which is why I love that. Then we find out that one of them's in that very chamber, where she just turns around and she's like, "I can't hear you anymore. What are you up to?" And so you get that scene literally just between the two of them there and then. I think that's a very interesting way of conceptualizing the idea for us, I think.
Yeah, and he turns and he's like just talking to her, and like, has that happened to her before? Like,
she looks shocked
like
and afraid.
one of her drones is, he's looking right at her and defying her. So, oh my gosh, it's another level of being pissed off at Janeway.
Exactly. And speaking of which, she also Janeway gets plugged into like a holographic communication thing, and on the other side of the communication appears as Captain Janeway again, because the Queen says, she restored Janeway's appearance because she knows how vain humans can be, to which I've made the note, yes, and it's also a lot cheaper than having to pay for the Borg makeup and everything for Kate Mulgrew again. I guess, again, I'm not stupid. I know how TV works.
Yeah. Plus, the funny thing about it is Kate Mulgrew, who I just love, she's amazing, but she just isn't. I mean, not that any Borg is aesthetically pleasing, but they didn't do her any favors. Whoever created her, and the bridge is bright and shiny, not like you can have shading and stuff if she's on the cube. So yeah, I bet you Kate Mulgrew was like, oh heck no, I am not doing that.
Fair enough. But yeah, so obviously we've touched on this earlier, but the Queen, I think it's really kind of wise and shows how cunningly kind of evil she is, that her appeal to Janeway's empathy and morality is just like, well, I'm going to now just blow up all of the ships that have free Borg, I guess, on them because of what you did, and it's your fault. And again, I both love and hate that she's like, as a Starfleet officer, you value all life, even drones. And I'm like, okay, well, nobody told Picard or the multiple other instances when they're just gunning down Borg left and right. But okay, I guess now we care.
Yeah, now we care about it, but that's just it would make sense to us as Janeway fans, but other captains might be like, well, whatever, I don't care. Janeway, that's just her character.
Even Janeway, though, I mean, she destroys plenty of Borg ships in her time as well,
That's true, she does. Yeah. I wonder if it's because she thought 7 of 9 might know some of them, or she might have met some of them, and hey, they're just coming to their own right now.
I think it's more that she feels more directly responsible, as I'm saying, because it's like, well, if you're killing Borg because you've got no other choice, but now it's like they would have been fine, but you've effectively killed them, and it gives them that face, doesn't it? So,
yep. Oof. See what you made me do? Exactly.
Not narcissistic. Which again reinforces the Queen.
At all.
Yeah, exactly. All I can picture now is the Borg Queen giving a full Taylor Swift performance because you said, "Look what you made me do."
Yeah, that'd be a cool outfit. Little twist.
The Borg Queen can't come to the collective right now because she's dead.
I'm totally gonna write that song someday.
Fair enough. But yeah, it is it's true what the Queen says, despite her being kind of evil and nasty. It's true that she says, like, well, Janeway, you're just using them to get to us at this stage, and how is that any better? And then Janeway, in the most bizarre way, just says, oh, well, you should visit Unimatrix Zero because maybe the taste of individuality would appeal to you. And I'm like, first of all, that's not how it works. Secondly, the Queen is the one person that has individuality anyway. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense trying to do that.
No, and I can remember thinking when I first watched this, I'm like, don't give this woman any ideas. We don't want her to go there. She's really not going to like that they're all doing that. She's stuck on this Borg cube with half a body.
Just a floating head, but yeah, it's perfect. So yeah, awesome. We see meanwhile back on Voyager that the ship is truly wrecked by the fact that they didn't change their access codes because they're all really stupid, which again should and could be a bit more tense, but yeah, I guess it's only a 2-part episode. We don't have time to worry too much about the repairs. So then we get them talking about severing the link with Unimatrix Zero and how it's difficult, and it's good that the Doctor and Seven have that little moment with each other because we've had the hints of that romance and that kind of relationship, as I mentioned, that was a bit Pygmalion style, which I said that this storyline I actually really like the romance aspect of things, but I feel like this scene is placed wrongly here because it just kills the momentum, because you go from kind of the injection of the virus to Tuvok being fully taken over to Janeway facing off against the Borg Queen, a bunch of Borg cubes blowing up, and then it just stops for a tender little scene between Seven and the Doctor, and I'm like, this has kind of just stopped the pace dead, really, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, that's true. Interesting editing choice there.
Yeah. But it is nice. As I said again, the Doctor, when he's like, he's trying to actually talk Seven through, you should maybe try and explore this. And, it's kind of cool. And there's a hint of jealousy, but he still sticks up for Axum. And at the end, he just says something like, I'll say this for him, he's a lucky man. And I was like, that could have been really creepy, but it comes off actually quite sweet, which is a line that Robert Picardo threads just perfectly there,
Yeah, he really plays that. The disappointment is clear to us, but Seven might not have noticed it, and it's just sort of an internal, he gets a little bit down to him, and he's just such a great actor. He really played that well.
Definitely. And obviously we go into Unimatrix Zero now, and as I mentioned earlier, they convince Korok to take action by pointing out that it's a matter of honor. So they've obviously read the Klingon rule book and know the best way to appeal to them. And yeah, brief mention of, as we mentioned earlier, 8472, we're going to try to contact them because Axum's far away on the border of fluidic space. And I just said that I like this next scene, but it's a blatant Casablanca ripoff moment kind of thing when it's like, oh, I'm too far away, we may never see each other, we'll always have Unimatrix Zero, and it was sufficient before, but now, and then they just kiss as the music swells, and I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. All right, fair enough.
Right. And right, of course, the Next Generation episode of We'll Always Have Paris, right?
Exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
like, okay. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I don't really need to get too much into the next scene because we've talked about it already, but it's just basically the Queen talking to the little boy and trying to appeal to him on a rational level of like, no, we are just trying to make you perfect and combine everyone, and your family are here. And I was like, I always like that when they do this, the Borg pointing out that they're not like vindictive or evil as far as they're concerned. In their mind, they're just like, why doesn't everybody want to be perfect and join us? Which again, yeah, interesting angle, because if you were that kid and you're hearing like you could be with your parents, it's interesting to think how that might appeal to you in that level. And it also reinforces the maternal nature of this Borg Queen, I think, as well.
Yeah, she's trying to desperately tell this little kid it's not so bad. His dad are there, and and it's just so weird because she knows where everybody is and knows everything, but this little kid doesn't know he won't be able to run up and hug his dad. His dad wouldn't even know who he is. It's like, oh, don't tell him this.
Doesn't really understand the nature of like free will and individuality and the deep thoughts of it. It's just kind of like, can I be like not lonely, maybe? Yeah. So,
I know, kid, your dad's a zombie.
Effectively, yeah.
Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah. Oh dear me, that's horrible. But yeah. Anyway, we get the Queen sort of. She basically goes back to Janeway, and I was like, "This is effectively the Queen because she's been in Unimatrix Zero, walking up and going, "Your Unimatrix Zero ain't shit, Janeway. Didn't do anything to me. I was not tempted at all." And then points out that she's now created again, convenient Star Trek style. She's now got a nanovirus that's adapted from the other one that will kill anyone instead of awakening them, and they can either rejoin the collective and live as Borg or die. So obviously even Janeway would think at least they're alive and whatever, and sends Janeway to negotiate for this with Voyager, at which point she appears. This is such a dumb little silly note, but I was like, oh, on Voyager they are encountering holographic Janeway, and I was like, lol, is this a bit of Star Trek Prodigy foreshadowing?
That's funny. Of course, holographic Janeway. I bet it is. They loved it. It's great because they're like, well, we can turn her off now. Okay, turn her back on. Turn her on. Turn her on.
Awesome. And I did like, in my mind at least, it's clearly a reference to Wrath of Khan when it's like they're giving a message, sounds like something else, but she's like, am I making myself clear? And even Chakotay says, oh yeah, I did get an order about the one you think. So yeah.
I'm thinking minutes, hours versus minutes. Yeah.
Yes, and in here it's like Chakotay, Unimatrix Zero cannot exist. Are we clear? So yeah, very good. And again, I absolutely love it. I'm sure you mentioned it earlier. Totally unexpected, and it was, even though I wasn't loving these episodes, the moment a Borg sphere turned up and you just cut to Korok piloting it on the view screen, like, I've come to join you in battle. I was like, oh, that's badass. I love that.
That was the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, Rock! I was so excited to see him, and he's totally there, and he's gonna help, and now everybody's all excited, and we know that he's amazing, but he is a general again. I mean, you can't just be a Klingon general not basically being amazing, like Martok or something,
Yeah.
He's really paid his dues, and he's a real warrior and a real leader, so it's going to be good.
It's awesome. But I also love, and again, this is a little bit of praise for the writing, I love that they came up with a clever way that we could infiltrate a really heavily armed Borg ship, because we have a Borg ship now. So I was like, that's genius to think that the only thing that could penetrate their weapons is them, and now we happen to have one, so yay!
Now we happen to have one, yeah. Oh, good. That's exactly what we needed.
Exactly, but I love it. And we've mentioned the Borg Queen's kind of snarl and grabbing at Janeway when she realizes what's happened here as Unimatrix Zero is destroyed. And of course, we get the kind of the equivalent of rushing to the airport moment when Seven rushes back in to see Axum one last time. And they embrace, and Axum just says, I'll find you, to which I've written the note, narrator, he never found her. But never mind.
And in the end, they never saw each other again. Yeah.
They didn't.
No.
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 Anyway, So we end things as we so often do with these big Borg episodes with just the self-destruction of the cube and the away team being beamed over, because we care about the lives of drones, but only when they're our friends. So we're just going to beam those 3 and not worry about the rest.
Nope. Sorry, suckers.
And we should probably have some precautions about the fact that Tuvok is fully assimilated and probably wants to attack us, but we'll be fine.
Yeah, Tuvok's just in the medical bed. The doctor's like, well, he's having a little problem, but yeah, he's a Borg. Where's security? I know, he is security.
Exactly. Well, that is something that bugs me, because as we've mentioned, and as you said earlier, okay, even if you want to buy the whole neural suppressant thing, Tuvok was fully assimilated, and that's something that like 7 of 9 and Picard are still dealing with to this day, and it's never addressed again for Tuvok at all. Never mind.
Yeah, we needed more scenes of Tuvok staring at his candle and having flashbacks of the Borg Queen.
Yeah, because it was really cool. Again, horror kind of scary moment when he sees his reflection on the Borg cube and sees what he looks like, and that's part of the like, ooh, what am I now kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway,
maybe it's easier for them because it was super temporary. I mean, it was really just for a little while. He never had to wake up as a Borg. It was just sort of a little bit.
I guess it's just kind of, well, I've made my feelings on that idea of the plot here, but anyway. Then, as I said, again, just reinforcing how dumb this plan was when Janeway's like, I'm in such pain. I had spinal clamps and everything. If I ever apply, it's easy for you. 7 of 9, remind me of this. And again, I'm like, Janeway, you did this. You volunteered, love. Shut up. But, yeah, it's kind of nice that we get that line echoed that then 7 of 9 replies, I did embrace my feelings for Axum, and if I ever imply he was just a friend, remind me of this. And it's great. But again, this next kind of line really bugs me, because she says, I think it's Janeway says, well, we've now just instigated a Borg civil war and the collective may never be the same again, to which I've just written, nope, again, never addressed. Just completely ignored going forward.
And they just moved on.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something about the Borg? Nope. We're not going to write about it. We're just moving on.
Exactly, yeah. But I found the ending to be quite abrupt, but it is a nice little glorious CGI shot of Voyager passing by a sun at the end. So there you go. So that's the end of my notes. So did you have anything that you wanted to quickly touch on that we haven't mentioned yet or not?
No, I got all my stuff out there.
Awesome.
So we're good. Yeah, I said everything, and especially I was hoping that you were gonna like Korak.
Oh yeah,
you don't
definitely.
always like the same characters I do, but
yeah. Well, that leads me to the next section then, because this is something that I'm doing this series because I thought it would give us a little bit of interest, which is to ask what you thought was your favorite character from this 2-parter. What was your favorite moment, and what was your favorite line?
Oh, okay. Well, I happen to write a note right here in my book. Best line of episode, Korak was concerned. Best acting, Tim Russ, of course, exclamation mark. So somehow I knew. I did not know, but yeah.
That's fair enough. Okay. So your favorite character was like Tuvok for the acting, and that was your favorite line. So did you have a favorite moment as well, or?
I think the end when it was when Korak came with the ship. I just think that was so great. It's sort of like a cheering moment where the crowd can cheer. So I love that.
Yeah. Which again feeds me perfectly into my answers for that then, because I said that my favorite character in this was Korak. My favorite moment was him joining the attack at the end, even though I did like the romance plot, but that moment was just too cool. And my favorite line of the episode was, I didn't notice any little box on my chair from right at the very start. Awesome. So there's just a couple of sections to get to. I do apologize, I won't keep you very much longer. The next bit that I tend to go into is just something that I call Jean's vision, a section where I basically address to the people that keep whinging about how Star Trek moves too far away from Jean's vision that there's always something there that represents that ideology, and just to ask if you spotted anything in this episode that you think really reinforces these kinds of stuff, Star Trek or Starfleet idealism.
You mean like the Prime Directive and stuff? I don't feel like that was really considered, because Janeway just walked in Chakotay and said, don't say anything. I need you to agree with my plan. So it doesn't seem to me like it was, but it was, maybe Jean's vision would have been, hey, we help those in need. And
Yes,
that's what
that's
that,
exactly my point.
Seven
Yeah.
of Nine kind of put that in Janeway's face. Hey, it's a distress call like any other distress call. So aren't you going to do something? I'd
Yes,
say
that's
that
exactly
probably.
that was the first point I made. Absolutely, and it's just reinforcing what you said. Yeah, we'll always help with a distress call. The reference to valuing all life, even though it's kind of nonsense, I think is very sort of ideologically very Jean as well. And just the idea of like Janeway waxing lyrical about individuality and how good Unimatrix Zero is and everything. And obviously the character of Seven of Nine and her path to humanity is an incredibly Gene Roddenberry idea if you look at like his character of Spock and the way that he grows through that journey. So yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's cool. So then, did you have the last part is just to get a conclusion and a score out of 5 Starfleet com badges or deltas? Did you want to go first, or would you rather I go first for this one?
No, you can go first. Yeah, that's fine.
That's probably better because I feel like we'll end on a happier note that way. So there we go.
That's funny.
My conclusion then for this one is just I think it's a mess of a story, unfortunately. I get the feeling it became focused around what's supposed to be a shocking cliffhanger, even though that's deeply problematic, attempting to replicate the Next Generation success, but kind of failing miserably. There's some good ideas, but they're swallowed by nonsense or rendered pointless in the end. Unimatrix Zero itself is fascinating, had real potential, and fed into Seven of Nine's development really well, but ultimately it didn't remotely matter, and the civil war it started is never even addressed again. The character interactions are all good, though, with the Queen Janeway dynamic always played well, but the central voluntary physical assimilation is so dumb and offensive to me, even before Tuvok is fully assimilated, that, yeah, the story isn't unwatchable, and it could have been pretty decent with some tweaks. Part 1 is pretty good until the end, and there are moments that are great if you enjoy the show and characters, but ultimately it hinges on too many moments that just hit me as silly or illogical, and everything is too easily forgotten and kind of forgettable for me. And so I went with a rather low 1.5 or 1.5 out of 5 score for this episode. Which sounds terrible.
Well,
it sounds like I didn't enjoy it.
Well, it's definitely watchable because as long as you haven't seen a lot of the other Voyager two-parters, this isn't bad. But if you've been through like, Year of Hell and the one with the Hirogen, like on the holodecks and everything, like if you've been through those, this isn't that great. It doesn't stand out. It does sing for Seven of Nine's character. It does bring some Annika stuff out, so I liked it. So I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, that's a little less than I had thought, but that's fair enough. So, awesome. So 1.5 and 2.5. Again, the average is pretty easy to work out on that one then. So the overall podcast score for this episode from me and my guest would be 2 out of 5 for Unimatrix Zero, which again, I feel is perhaps a little low. It's not an episode that I hated watching and I could watch again anytime. It's not the worst by any means, but I just think, as you said, comparatively, it's kind of weak for me. But I'm pleased we at least got a chance to discuss it, and it gave us plenty to talk about, and you enjoyed it, I think.
Sure.
So, awesome.
yeah, definitely fun. But I will just say this. I give the music of this episode like a bunch of stars because that made a huge difference for me. Just the music I think was great. Kudos to that musical team.
I would agree. That's why I said there's things in here that's really work, because I think the music does. I think the acting really works in the episode.
It does, and the acting. Yeah.
It's just the plotting and the kind of scripting, I think, that doesn't hit me very well. But
and
anyway.
it does lose a little momentum here and there. So, yeah. But I would watch it again, but I've watched it so much lately. I'm like, well, let's move on to something else.
Well, I own it twice because I have the Borg Collective DVD set and the Voyager season 6 and 7 DVDs. So there you go.
That's funny.
Anyway, so I probably won't keep you for very much longer, but I just wanted to finish with my usual final section, which is the interaction with the audience, where I put out a message to social media, and this is the section that I call Subspace Communications.
Incoming transmission.
And so, yes, I just asked what were your thoughts, feelings, opinions on the two-parter Unimatrix Zero? I didn't get a ton of responses. I think there's about maybe half a dozen or so. The first one is from @AlexJ Harmon, who says, I thought it was quite interesting. Loved most of it, though would have liked to see how the neurosuppressant worked or what it was. Fair enough. Night Star Fury says, emotionally badass, especially since Catherine Janeway is the only Starfleet captain who can make the Borg Queen snarl her name in revulsion. Nice. @Starwolf_Wokley says, I thought it revealed the Borg's dirty little secret. They assimilate because they like it. There we go. @Carpinelli03 simply just says, loved it. @Jason_JTT Thompson has a little 3-piece thread here and just says, I remember thinking they undermined their own cliffhanger. Voyager battling the cube and the away team being assimilated should have been awesome, but including the scene where Chakotay says all according to plan and withdraws makes it clear there's something going on. Concept-wise, I thought it was excellent, and the idea that all the experience with the Borg and Seven allowed them to resist assimilation is logical. Not sure I agree, but okay. Though the mentally disciplined Tuvok being the one to succumb is less so. And I love the moment when Janeway takes on a Borg drone in Unimatrix Zero with a batleth, and the Queen sees it and recognizes her. @Ice of Telos, I'm presuming a Doctor Who fan, says, I enjoyed it, but felt like it reduced assimilation from the sheer physical and psychological horror that Picard went through to simply dressing up as the Borg. Neurosuppressant or not, their bodies were still forcefully augmented, but was later undone as if nothing happened. That voices a lot of, I think, my concerns with the episode as well. @Nikki Morgan says, a step too far, too emotional and rather silly. And finally, @Camos Mills, frequent collaborator and responder, just says, I like it. It's always nice to see her, and then left a gif of the Borg Queen. So there we go. I think mixed response overall to this episode by everyone, but again, not the worst thing Star Trek's ever produced, perhaps, but yeah.
Not the worst, but once you've watched and done the story, there's so many other excellent things in Star Trek, that you just you don't need to necessarily go back to it, but it's all right the first time.
It's always good to talk Star Trek anyway, especially with like-minded fans, and I've had a really good time talking to you, so that's always good.
I love all the feedback you got on Twitter. That's great.
I know, yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. I just have to say that, Adrienne, it's been a real treat and a real pleasure talking Trek with you, and I'm sorry for keeping you a bit long.
Oh, that's okay. This is really great. I'm so glad, and I feel, more confident. I hope I get to go do other podcasts or come back for be a guest with another guest maybe someday, talk about some episodes with you if you ever need something like that. Love to.
I would be happy to have you on again anytime and discuss anything Trek related, but hopefully, it's not been too painful or nerve-wracking an experience for you, because I think you've been a good guest. So. Awesome. Awesome. Do you want to quickly shout out any kind of social medias or any projects that you've got coming up for anyone?
Well, sure. The only social media I have is Twitter, and I'm AL Park, like you park your car, Tucker 2. So AL Park Tucker 2. I follow you, so if anybody is interested in following me, my Twitter stuff expands out though to lots of Wheel of Time things on there. So I know you aren't a Wheel of Time fan, but I'm gonna work to see if I can get you to read these books. There's only 14, so hey, no worries. And I talk a lot about Trek, but there's some politics out there too. So if somebody wants to avoid politics, I'm not the best follow, but I have a lot of funny stuff on there. Oh, and there's kittens.
There we go. That's sold people. You lost them for a second with the political talk, and then kittens, they're right back on board.
Yes, kittens.
Awesome. That's great. And if you don't mind, I will tag you in kind of promotion and stuff for this episode when it goes out, so people can follow that to find you. So that's great.
Okay.
And
sure.
Yeah, again, thanks for joining me. I've had a very, very good time, and hopefully we can do this again sometime relatively soon. And audience can join me again next week when I will be joined by Phil Hawkins of multiple different YouTube and podcasts, including the Red Dwarf review podcast he was kind enough to have me on. And we are going to be reviewing the Star Trek Enterprise episode Regeneration next week. So we're still delving deep into the Borg. Yes. But until then, from myself and from Adrienne, remember, we are Starfleet. Live long and prosper. Resistance is futile.
Live long and prosper.